Here we go now.
Good day. My name is Barrie Tan, Dr. Barrie Tan, and I will speak about tocotrienol, a passion of my life for the past 35 years, possibly more, that I've been involved with this compound that is first known in nature, and then I will go over the different points. And some of the points about this Annatto tocotrienol, to be specific, would be why Annatto tocotrienol. I will discuss that. The importance and the function of Annatto tocotrienol, describing the different studies and the trials that underscore what the function is supposed to be, and some of the conditions that tocotrienol help. Particularly, if you want a big term, would be in chronic conditions such as diabetes, prediabetes, fatty liver disease, metabolic syndrome, functions to correct those ones. There are some other unique ones, but we'll stay mostly focused on this. All right, let's begin. And hopefully with that, I might be able to cover the concepts of heart health, cardiovascular health, possibly overlapping into immunity, for which it is a flip side of inflammation, and some energy perspective. Anytime you correct the metabolism, the energy would help anyhow. So, all right, a few words about my background. I got my PhD some 40 years ago at University of Otago in New Zealand, and in more than 40 years now have lived in the United States, mostly in the northeastern part of the United States in Massachusetts, like that, and I travel across the world to speak about tocotrienol. About my discovery of tocotrienol. I started with palm tocotrienol in the 1980s from Malaysia, and then rice tocotrienol in the 1990s from Thailand, and then Annatto tocotrienol in the 2000 in Peru. So there you have it. It is a long haul. And then in the last 10 years or so, I stayed with Annatto tocotrienol. We made it in the United States, and because we found that Annatto tocotrienol have unique properties for tocotrienol, unshared by that of palm, nor that of rice, and definitely unshared compared to tocopherol. So now, having that as a quick background, vitamin E. Vitamin E are two sets of compound tocopherols and tocotrienol, 4 each. Probably the best known one is alpha tocopherol, because it was the first known vitamin E like that. And I mentioned that that they work well on working on against chronic conditions like that. The difference between tocopherol and tocotrienol. Tocotrienol and tocopherol have a ring, and the ring is an antioxidant. And then you have a tail. They almost look similar. The tail of a tocopherol is slightly longer because it does not have double bond. The whole tail is saturated. The tail of a tocotrienol is slightly shorter because it's got 3 double bond, and hence the word tri. Ene means double bond. Trienol means an alcohol in the ring. So it's trienol, 3 double bonds in the tail. In a tocopherol, the tail is completely saturated longer and it doesn't have any double bond. That's it. That's just a chemical thing. Doesn't have much other meaning besides the description on a nomenclature. Annatto tocotrienol, before I describe the detail, I should give you some understanding. If you were to just say what actually it is, what it isn't, what would you say about annatto tocotrienol? And here are the few things that I can say of it. There are three sources of tocotrienol from rice, from palm, and annatto that I mentioned. Most other natural sources are just tocopherol. Annatto is the most potent of the tocotrienol. Why? For one, it does not contain alpha tocopherol, so it's truly tocopherol free. And then for two, of all the tocotrienols studied, alpha, beta, delta, and gamma, the two that stand up head and shoulder above all else is delta and gamma tocotrienol, delta tocotrienol and gamma tocotrienol. Then in annatto tocotrienol, it only contains delta and gamma tocotrienol, nothing else. And of the two, the delta is 90%, and then the gamma tocotrienol is 10%, which means that it contains the most potent vitamin E nature produces. And secondly, it produces 10% of the second most potent vitamin E nature produces. So if that doesn't work, then tocotrienol is not going to work at all on anything that we'll study. So that's that I wanted to say on it. People ask me about the antioxidant effects of vitamin E. Just think of a cell like a bean shape and contain the constituent of the cell like nucleus and mitochondria inside. The cell wall is very high in fat, and the cell wall have antioxidant, and those perfect antioxidant is vitamin E, because it's snuck into the cell wall to protect the lipid fat from oxidation. And the fat is the easiest one to get oxidized of all the things in our body, so they need to be protected, and vitamin E is most suitable for it. Now you think of a tocopherol. The tail is longer, it anchors deeper into the membrane, it moves around like, imagine it's moving around like this to capture oxygen that went awry, and then it's able to capture the radical. When you have a tocotrienol, it's shorter, so it anchors less deeply, so it moves around the cell 50 times faster. And for that reason alone, tocotrienol is 50 times more potent as an antioxidant than tocopherol. That's it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for it to be 50 times more potent to capture the free radical oxygen. So that's the antioxidant part. The implication of the antioxidant is huge, particularly in the area of anti-inflammation. But I'll come to that from the studies I will remember later. Now I want to make 2 points to differentiate tocopherol and tocotrienol. There are many studies on vitamin E tocopherol. Tocopherol interferes with the functions of tocotrienol. This is a harder concept to grasp, meaning that sometimes you add 1 + 1 should be equal to 2, and sometimes 1 + 1 is greater than 2. Then there will be synergistic. Occasionally, 1 + 1 is less than 2, then it's antagonistic. In the example of tocopherol in tocotrienol, because they're part of the family of vitamin E, alpha tocopherol interferes with the function of tocotrienol. So 1 + 1 is less than 2. Therefore, we would want a product that has no tocopherol if you want to mine and take advantage of the function of tocotrienol. So I would say alpha tocopherol put brakes on tocotrienol function. Next, there are many studies on alpha tocopherol in the 90s. Much of them fail. They fail because when you use it, they actually promote oxidation of the LDL. It increases inflammation in some cases, and it increased postmenopausal women outcome on the trials. and increase high blood pressure, and in some instances potentially also increase cancer. So alpha tocopherol have a checkered past. I would say alpha tocopherol has too many landmines to be worth taking. We do not find this with tocotrienol, and Annatto tocotrienol is free of tocopherol. I said that I would cover the cardiovascular benefits of tocotrienol, and they are different ones. We first studied this in cholesterol lowering. That was in 1980s, University of Wisconsin, from my colleague there. He extracted it from plant, and he noticed that the cholesterol would drop. This is during the time and the advent of statin drugs, where it would work to lower cholesterol. So that was the first hint we got. And when we compared with alpha tocopherol, it didn't work. Then many years later, like 10 years later, he did 5 clinical studies. About 3 of them worked. 1 of the 3 almost didn't work, and 2 of them didn't work. So it's kind of like half-half. He was not satisfied. At the time, we were using palm tocotrienol, and palm typically contained 25% alpha tocopherol. We didn't know what alpha tocopherol is going to do. So he stopped the study. He went back to do animal study to figure out. So he used the most active gamma tocotrienol and delta tocotrienol, and then it worked to lower cholesterol this much. And then he used gamma tocotrienol and add about half alpha tocopherol back to the animal, and then the ability to lower this half is lower less, about this much. And then he used a third group, the same amount of gamma tocotrienol, and then the same amount of alpha tocopherol, and then the ability to lower cholesterol almost didn't work, stopped here. He even did a further experiment. He used the same amount of gamma tocotrienol and about 50% or twice the amount of alpha tocopherol. At that point, the cholesterol actually increased. So you can do the math that alpha tocopherol mitigate the functions of tocotrienol, and at worst may even increase cholesterol. It was there. He discovered 2 things: alpha tocopherol interferes, and tocotrienol have differentiated functions from alpha tocopherol. And since then, this has been replicated in cancer study, in other study that scientists all over the world does, and metabolic syndrome, in other functions that people study. So they're conscious to use tocotrienol that is free of tocopherol to take advantage of the functions. After his success with cholesterol lowering, he then started to study inflammation. Inflammation is kind of like the flip side of immunity. For example, in COVID, you have cytokine storm. So the immunity is increased to bring the white blood cell there, but it's done OD on it, and hence the lung cannot breathe. If you have a cut, you have some other thing that have to raise immunity, it would be the same. So you want immunity and inflammation to be there, but you want it to be contained. And the role of tocotrienol is to work not so much on acute inflammation or acute immunity, but on chronic immunity and chronic inflammation. So I'll use a chronic inflammation example. When we have a pathogen coming in, we want the inflammation to increase so it'll kill the bug. But then there's something called systemic inflammation and chronic inflammation. And we have a marker for that. It's called C-reactive protein. There are other markers, but that's the one that is clinician use the most frequent. So we conducted study with people with fatty liver, like NAFLD. We conducted study with metabolic syndrome. That means that the triglyceride is high, and the cholesterol is somewhat high but not over the top high, and the sugar is high but not high enough to be diabetic. So we did those studies. When we did, we measure C-reactive protein as well as triglyceride, as well as sugar. And in short, we noticed that the moderately high sugar drop a little bit, the moderately high triglyceride drop a little bit, and the inflammation as measured by C-reactive protein also drop. So that is to say, it reduced the chronic inflammation of the person that have this kind of chronic conditions, and also improve the metabolites functioning in our body. Then, seeing those successes, we then conducted study directly on people with fatty liver disease. We did a 3-month study and a 6-month study, and those are published. So the shorthand of that is it reduces steatosis, which means a fat store in the liver using ultrasound scan. It lowers triglyceride, LDL, and sugar. People who have fatty liver have moderately high sugar also. Empowered by that, we're now having an ongoing study of a 12-month study. So these are deliberate time-dependent study of 3 months, 6 months published, and then now we're doing an independent 12-month study. We expect it to be positive. We were surprised at the 3 and 6 month study, the patient experienced weight loss. We weren't expecting that. About 10 pounds on the 3-month study and about 17 pounds on the 6-month study. This is not a weight loss product, but we noticed and reported the weight loss. So we'll wait and see what the 12-month study would yield. So now, on the last part on the chronic condition, we went back to study people who have diabetes and went back to study people who have pre-diabetes. Again, we systematically see that the sugar drop. We measure the sugar 2 ways. The emotional sugar, I said, would be the fasting sugar the next day, after a fast. And then the non-emotional sugar would be the A1C, which is a remark of how well your sugar did in the last 90 days, 3 months. And for both of them, whether it's the overnight fast or the 3-month A1C, they drop. They drop about 10% to 15%. So it's nothing to sneeze at for a nutritional supplement compound. So we're very confident in the space of cardiovascular health and in the space of chronic health, in the space of metabolic health. Tocotrienol have a particular role to play in reducing the inflammation, in correcting the metabolite system in the body. We also have a smaller study of elderly population. They are not otherwise ill, and then the C-reactive protein and the metabolites are also become better. I actually cover almost all of the study in a hurry, so now I'm backtracking to touch on a few. In the human body, we have 75 trillion cells, about 5,000 times the population of the Earth, big number. And to the feeding of all of these cells is done to 30,000 miles of artery. 30,000 miles of artery would be like if you leave New York City and you travel around the globe on the circumference, you pass New York City and you go back to Los Angeles, something like that, around the globe and a little bit more. That would be 30,000 miles. And in the 30,000 miles of artery, you need the vascular system to be in good shape so that it can deliver the goods to all the 38 trillion cells, and on the way back to bring waste back into the artery to be disposed of, like that. And tocotrienol is able to protect the arterial health so that you would not have arteriosclerosis, either from deposition of calcium or deposition of plaque because of oxidized cholesterol, and also reduce the inflammation that is also an important function of arteriosclerosis. And in animal study, we found that tocotrienol is able to reduce arteriosclerosis approximately 25 to 35%. About 20 years ago, we did a study on carotid artery, which is here, and we found that also to work on arteriosclerotic plaque. As we know that overweight and obesity is going to be, is already a big problem. In the US, about 75 to 80% or 75%, 3 in 4 people are either overweight or obese. So this bodes over the possibility of people having diabetes, pre-diabetes, fatty liver disease, and metabolic syndrome. So we decided to do a study in Texas, and it's on postmenopausal women who are obese and men who are obese. And we will have adipose fat biopsies, and we'll study and see how tocotrienol may intervene. During the COVID season, some of the clinical trial portion is being interrupted, but it will be able to continue. So perhaps towards the end of next year, we will be able to see some definitive result. This to say that we are so confident with tocotrienol, we commit study in the area that we believe the best to happen. So there you have it. So now I've covered obesity, I've covered fatty liver, diabetes, pre-diabetes, and metabolic syndrome, and arteriosclerosis, or simply lipidemia of high cholesterol and high triglyceride. I believe I've covered all of them. I would like to show you a structure of vitamin E tocotrienol. See, this is the ring here, and that this is the antioxidant OH, and this is the tail I mentioned earlier, this one here. And in the tail have 3 double bonds, one here, where my thumb is pointing, and the other one here. And in a tocopherol, those 3 double bonds will not be found. In a tocotrienol, there will be the 3 double bonds. Otherwise, a tocopherol and tocotrienol would be looking the same and analogous. And the antioxidant portion is this one here. And so the tail have much to do with a tocotrienol molecule, and in that of Annatto tocotrienol is specifically only tocotrienol and mainly delta tocotrienol without any tocopherol. Just to tell you how long I have been involved in this work, it's not a flash in the pan. Here's a picture of me in the year 2002. I was in South America, and a younger me there looking at the picture of an Annatto. And in the back of me, you will see pictures of Annatto. Annatto is the color we use to color cheeses in the West. So it's not a strange compound, but the discovery of tocotrienol in it, that's novel. And that was about 22 years ago when I traveled to South America. To tell you the potency of Annatto, here's a picture of it. You can see there's 50 milligram, 125, and 300 milligram. Look at the size of those, the intensity in it compared to that of palm of about 50 milligram, 100, and 200 milligram, much bigger. So in Annatto, we have much less other excipient content and just the tocotrienol itself. I hope you will enjoy this, and you will see benefits to your health. So to health, to joy, and to the pleasant of living life. Thank you so much. This is Dr. Tan.